You clearly have your act together. Let me go through my little checklist here. You haven't been to jail?
No.
No jail?
No, not yet.
Rehab?
No.
No rehab. Amanda Bynes, what kind of a starlet are you?
I know, what's wrong with me? Bizarre behavior from former child star Amanda Bynes.
In a series of bizarre tweets over the weekend following her arrest,
Amanda, how was it?
You have to delete that one in my face. I need to look beautiful.
26-year-old has racked up 2 hit-and-run charges, a DUI, and her car was impounded. I see this girl with,
Have you ever wondered how someone who once made the whole world laugh could suddenly vanish into silence? Amanda Bynes wasn't just another young star, she was a phenomenon. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, her name was synonymous with talent, charm, and effortless comedy. From The Amanda Show to She's the Man and What a Girl Wants, she had the rare gift of making people smile without trying too hard. But behind the laughter was a young woman growing up in the blinding glare of fame, struggling to hold on to herself as Hollywood slowly unraveled her innocence. What happened to Amanda Bynes is not just a story about fame gone wrong, it's a reflection of the darker side of celebrity culture, pressure, control, mental health battles, and the loneliness that comes when the spotlight fades. Over the years, her closest friends, co-stars, and family members have shared painful truths, glimpses into how a once-beloved child star lost her way in a system that rewards talent but often ignores pain. This is the real story behind Amanda Bynes' tragic downfall and what truly went wrong. From the moment Amanda Bynes appeared on Nickelodeon's All That, she stood out. Her comedic timing was far beyond her age. Sharp, fearless, and wildly expressive, producers immediately recognized her talent, giving her The Amanda Show at just 13 years old, where she wrote sketches, improvised dialogue, and carried the entire series on her shoulders. Audiences adored her energy. She wasn't trying to be funny, she simply was. The industry hailed her as the next Lucille Ball, a once-in-a-generation comedic prodigy. But even then, Amanda's life was tightly structured. Every joke, every smile, every scene came under adult supervision, producers, agents, and executives directing her every move. Childhood, as most people know it, didn't really exist for her. Fame became both her identity and her prison. While other teenagers explored friendships, mistakes, and first loves, Amanda was memorizing scripts, attending press events, and managing expectations far too heavy for a young girl. By the time she transitioned to movies like Big Fat Liar and What a Girl Wants, her career was unstoppable. Critics praised her versatility, directors called her a natural, and fans believed she had it all. But inside, Amanda was already struggling with the invisible weight of perfection. Every smile came with pressure, every headline with scrutiny. Hollywood wasn't nurturing her, it was consuming her. Those who worked with her recall that even as a teenager, Amanda was introspective and sensitive. She cared deeply about pleasing others, terrified of disappointing anyone. That vulnerability, coupled with her immense fame, planted the earliest seeds of the storm that would come years later. She was too young to know that Hollywood rarely allows its stars to simply grow up. It builds them up, just to watch them fall. As Amanda Bynes transitioned from Nickelodeon darling to Hollywood leading lady, the expectations grew heavier. The industry had already labeled her the perfect girl next door, witty, wholesome, and marketable. But behind that polished image was a young woman trapped in an exhausting cycle of performance. By her late teens, Amanda was working non-stop filming What I Like About You while juggling movie roles and promotional tours. She barely had time to rest, much less understand who she truly was outside the cameras. Hollywood often disguises exploitation as opportunity, and for Amanda, the constant pressure to stay flawless began to erode her confidence. Producers, managers, and stylists dictated her appearance, tone, and even mannerisms. One director later recalled how Amanda often asked, "Was that okay? Did I do it right?" A question that hinted at deep insecurity beneath her cheerful exterior. Fame had given her everything, yet taken her peace in return. Each tabloid photo, each online comment about her looks or weight, chipped away at her sense of self. Social media only intensified the scrutiny. Her once adoring audience now felt entitled to dissect her every move. Behind closed doors, friends said she became quieter, more withdrawn, and increasingly uncertain about her future. She began turning down scripts, saying she didn't want to play the same cute comedy girl anymore. She wanted to grow as an artist, but Hollywood wasn't interested in her evolution. It wanted her brand. The relentless image maintenance left her emotionally exhausted. She was no longer Amanda, the person. She was Amanda, the product. That conflict between authenticity and expectation became the root of her struggle. When perfection becomes your identity, imperfection feels like failure. And in an industry that profits from perfection, Amanda's humanity was the first thing to go unnoticed. Fame, for Amanda Bynes, wasn't glamorous, it was isolating. By her early 20s, she had achieved what most actors only dream of: fame, wealth, and recognition. Yet, she often said she felt lonely in a crowded room. The endless interviews, film sets, and flashing lights gave her visibility but robbed her of genuine connection. Friends from her Nickelodeon days noticed the change. She used to light up the room, one recalled, but later, she'd smile for cameras and then go quiet when they stopped. Living under constant observation blurred the line between performance and reality. Every laugh could be replayed, every word twisted. The freedom to simply be herself was gone. As Amanda moved deeper into mainstream Hollywood, she found herself surrounded by people who wanted something: managers, producers, agents, everyone except genuine friends. Those who cared about her said she often craved normalcy. She wanted to walk down the street without paparazzi, to buy coffee without her picture ending up online. Fame had turned ordinary moments into impossible dreams. The isolation grew worse as her career slowed. She began avoiding public appearances and confided that she didn't know who to trust. Social pressure and false headlines pushed her further inward. By the time she began retreating from acting, the public had already begun labeling her unstable, unaware that what they were witnessing was burnout, not breakdown. Amanda once described fame as living in a glass box. Everyone could see her, but no one truly heard her. That invisible loneliness, the kind that fame disguises with spotlights, began shaping her mental and emotional state. She was surrounded by admiration but starved for understanding. By 2010, Amanda Bynes reached a turning point that would change her life forever. After a string of successful films, including Hairspray and Easy A, she shocked fans by announcing her retirement from acting at just 24. On Twitter, she wrote, "I don't love acting anymore." Many dismissed it as impulsive, but those close to her knew it was a cry for help. She wasn't quitting fame, she was trying to escape it. Behind the scenes, Amanda's mental health was deteriorating. She struggled with anxiety, insomnia, and growing paranoia about the media's obsession with her. Paparazzi followed her everywhere, sometimes provoking her just to capture a reaction. The young woman once celebrated for her humor was now being hunted for her vulnerability. Friends recalled that Amanda began experimenting with substances as a way to cope. She reportedly used Adderall to manage stress and control weight, a dangerous habit in an already fragile state. Combined with exhaustion and emotional instability, it created a perfect storm. Her once bright personality dimmed. The public laughter was replaced by online ridicule. What made it worse was how quickly the media turned cruel. Tabloids mocked her tweets, called her crazy, and turned her pain into headlines. The world, that had built her up as a teen, now laughed as she fell apart. Those close to Amanda described this period as her breaking point. She was tired of pretending, tired of living for other people's expectations. The industry that once celebrated her now exploited her distress. By the time she isolated herself from Hollywood entirely, the damage was already deep. This wasn't rebellion, it was survival. Amanda Bynes wasn't losing her mind. She was losing control of a life that had never truly belonged to her. Once adored by millions, Amanda Bynes soon became the target of mockery. Between 2010 and 2013, tabloids began chronicling her every move, from trivial wardrobe choices to minor public incidents, spinning them into sensational headlines. What the public didn't realize was that they were watching a young woman in pain. Her erratic tweets, sudden disappearances, and confusing statements weren't attention-seeking. They were symptoms of a deeper mental health struggle that no one around her was properly addressing. Late-night hosts and gossip blogs made her the punchline of their jokes. The girl who once brought laughter to millions now had laughter turned against her. Paparazzi waited outside her home, following her every step, shouting insults to provoke reactions they could sell. Photos of her walking alone, looking tired or distressed, were published with cruel captions feeding a media circus that profited from her decline. Friends say this constant ridicule pushed Amanda further into isolation. She began to distrust everyone, even those who genuinely cared. Her world grew smaller, and her public image began to collapse under the weight of sensationalism. She deleted social media, then returned impulsively, posting emotional messages that only fueled public scrutiny. The irony was brutal. The same media that had celebrated her comedic timing now mocked her vulnerability. This wasn't entertainment, it was exploitation. Amanda's breakdown became a spectacle, and few stopped to ask why. In a culture obsessed with watching stars fall, empathy was the one thing missing. Behind the chaos, she was crying for help, not fame. But by then, the noise of the media drowned out her voice entirely. The laughter that once lifted her career had turned into something dark, cruel, and unforgiving. In 2013, Amanda's life spiraled into the kind of public collapse that made front-page headlines around the world. Her increasingly erratic behavior, strange tweets, unpredictable appearances, and legal troubles became impossible for fans to ignore. In July of that year, she was placed under a temporary psychiatric hold after allegedly starting a small fire near a stranger's driveway in Los Angeles. It was the moment when concern finally overtook mockery, when people began to realize this wasn't rebellion but crisis. Those close to her described Amanda as lost, frightened, and confused. Years of pressure, isolation, and untreated mental health struggles had taken their toll. She had been self-medicating with drugs like Adderall and marijuana, trying to find calm in a world that refused to give her peace. Yet every action she took was magnified and mocked. Instead of compassion, she received headlines like "Amanda Bynes gone crazy." Her parents, desperate to help, sought legal guardianship, a conservatorship to protect her and manage her affairs. While some questioned their intentions, those who knew the situation closely said it was an act of love, not control. They simply wanted their daughter safe. What made Amanda's breakdown particularly tragic was how public it was. Most people can heal in private. She had to do it while the entire world watched. Every stumble, every relapse, every attempt to start over was documented online forever. The bright, confident girl who once carried Nickelodeon on her back was now portrayed as a cautionary tale. But beneath the chaos was still the same: Amanda, fragile, sensitive, and longing to be seen as more than her mistakes. The world had defined her by her worst moments, forgetting the years of laughter she had given so freely. When Amanda was officially diagnosed with bipolar disorder and manic depression, it seemed like a turning point, a long overdue explanation for her erratic behavior. Yet, even then, the media refused to treat her illness with the sensitivity it deserved. Instead of focusing on her recovery, tabloids continued to sensationalize her condition, framing her as unpredictable rather than unwell. Her diagnosis wasn't the end of her suffering. It was the beginning of her battle to reclaim control over her life. Mental illness, especially under the glare of fame, is a constant uphill climb. Amanda had spent years being misunderstood, seen as dramatic, spoiled, or unstable. Now, she was finally being recognized as someone struggling with a legitimate medical condition, but stigma lingered, both in the press and among fans, who couldn't separate the real person from the headlines. Those who spent time with her during treatment described moments of hope. She began attending therapy regularly, started painting, and even enrolled in fashion school, a field she said brought her peace and creativity. Friends saw glimpses of the Amanda they remembered, witty, sweet, and imaginative. Yet recovery isn't linear. There were relapses, setbacks, and long stretches of silence. Amanda's greatest challenge wasn't just mental illness, it was trying to heal while the world refused to let her forget her past. Every time she made progress, the media reminded her of her lowest point. But despite it all, she kept fighting. Her parents stayed by her side, encouraging her to focus on healing, not headlines. What Amanda needed and still deserves is understanding, not judgment. Her diagnosis didn't define her downfall. It revealed the humanity beneath it. She wasn't broken, she was battling. Like so many others who face mental illness in silence, the tragedy was never that she struggled. The tragedy was that the world laughed before it listened. In 2013, Amanda Bynes' parents were granted a conservatorship, a legal arrangement that gave them control over her finances, medical care, and major life decisions. It was the same kind of system later made infamous by Britney Spears' case, and it quickly divided public opinion. To some, it was a safety net. To others, it was a symbol of lost autonomy. But for Amanda's family, it was an act of desperation. They weren't trying to own her life, they were trying to save it. Under the conservatorship, Amanda began receiving structured treatment. Doctors monitored her medication, therapists helped her rebuild trust, and her parents provided stability she hadn't had in years. For the first time in a long while, she was protected from outside manipulation. Friends say that Amanda started to show signs of recovery. She was calmer, more focused, and beginning to rediscover her voice. Still, the arrangement came with emotional costs. Being legally stripped of independence is painful for anyone, especially for a woman who had been in control of her career since childhood. Amanda often expressed frustration over having her decisions questioned or vetoed. In rare interviews, she admitted she understood why the conservatorship existed, but wished the public would see her as capable of change. Throughout the years, she oscillated between gratitude and resentment, grateful for her parents' care, but desperate to be treated as an adult again. As time went on, the conversation about her autonomy grew louder. Supporters demanded transparency, while others simply hoped she would find balance. For Amanda, the conservatorship wasn't just a legal status, it was a reflection of her journey, a young woman trying to heal, yet still tethered to her past. It kept her safe, but also reminded her daily of everything fame had taken away: freedom, privacy, and trust. After years of instability, Amanda began to quietly rebuild her life. She stepped out of the spotlight, choosing solitude over spectacle. In 2014, she enrolled at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in California. For the first time, she wasn't being photographed on red carpets or chased by tabloids. She was simply a student. Those who studied with her described her as polite, creative, and soft-spoken. She immersed herself in her coursework, designing clothes, sketching ideas, and finding peace through art. Fashion became therapy. It allowed her to channel her imagination in a space that wasn't performative. There were no scripts, no directors, just fabric, color, and control. Slowly, Amanda began regaining her confidence. She stayed close to her parents and limited public interactions, determined to heal without the noise of celebrity. Social media glimpses showed progress. She began speaking more positively, thanking fans for their support and acknowledging her struggles. In 2018, she gave a rare interview where she apologized for her past behavior and explained that substance abuse had amplified her mental health struggles. "It was like I wasn't myself," she said candidly. Her honesty struck a chord for the first time. The world saw Amanda not as a fallen star, but as a survivor. Yet, recovery is never linear. Amanda had moments of vulnerability, occasional setbacks, and times when she retreated again. But unlike before, she was no longer spiraling publicly. She was managing privately. The girl who once couldn't escape headlines was now creating a life beyond them. Her resilience was quietly inspiring. She wasn't trying to reclaim fame, she was trying to reclaim herself. Through education, creativity, and time, Amanda proved that healing doesn't happen under spotlights, it happens in silence, through small, steady steps toward peace. In 2020, Amanda Bynes reappeared online, surprising fans with a more confident and reflective demeanor. She announced her engagement to Paul Michael, a man she reportedly met during treatment. For a moment, it seemed she had found stability, love, calm, and purpose. But soon, cracks began to show. The sudden return to public attention reignited the very pressures she had escaped. Every photo, every post, every word was dissected once again by tabloids, eager to revive the old narrative of chaos. Amanda's mental health struggles resurfaced periodically, and her relationship with Paul became complicated. The two separated and reconciled multiple times, each event making headlines. Public curiosity returned, but it wasn't fueled by empathy. It was the same invasive fascination that had haunted her youth. The media's obsession with her comeback ignored the reality. Recovery doesn't follow a script. By 2022, her conservatorship officially ended after nearly 9 years. The court determined she was capable of managing her own affairs, marking a milestone in her long fight for independence. She thanked her supporters and expressed hope for the future, saying she looked forward to continuing therapy and pursuing fashion. But the spotlight, as always, remained heavy. In early 2023, Amanda faced new mental health challenges, leading to another temporary psychiatric hold. It was a sobering reminder that recovery is lifelong, and fame offers no sanctuary. Even so, Amanda's journey is far from over. She continues to navigate life privately, focusing on wellness and stability. The world still watches, but this time, many do so with compassion, having finally learned that behind every celebrity story lies a person simply trying to heal. Amanda Bynes' re-emergence wasn't a fall or a rise. It was a step, imperfect but human, toward reclaiming peace in a world that once took it from her. After the conservatorship ended, Amanda Bynes chose something Hollywood rarely understands: silence. She didn't rush to make a comeback, sign a deal, or chase relevance. Instead, she retreated from the noise, prioritizing her health and inner peace. For the first time in decades, she wasn't performing. There were no cameras, no press appearances, and no filters, just Amanda, rediscovering who she was beneath the fame. Friends said that silence became her healing space. She spent her days painting, designing, and journaling simple acts that allowed her to process years of emotional turmoil. Social media posts became sparse, but when she did share, her tone was calm and self-aware. She no longer spoke as a celebrity, but as a survivor, reclaiming her narrative on her own terms. In interviews, Amanda described therapy and medication as vital anchors in her recovery. She acknowledged her mistakes without shame, a rare act of vulnerability in an industry that often demands denial. "I've learned to forgive myself," she once said. That quiet acceptance marked a turning point, but silence also came with loneliness. Fame fades fast, and in its place, Amanda faced the difficult task of building a private life from scratch. She was no longer the center of attention, and that was both freeing and frightening. Yet, in that stillness, she found clarity. The absence of validation taught her something fame never could. Self-worth doesn't come from applause, it comes from peace. Amanda's silence wasn't disappearance, it was rebirth. In a culture addicted to noise, she chose stillness. And for the first time in her adult life, Amanda Bynes wasn't chasing success or attention, she was chasing serenity. Amanda Bynes' story mirrors that of so many child stars who came of age in an era when fame was treated like currency and privacy like weakness. She was part of a generation of young talents: Britney Spears, Lindsay Lohan, Macaulay Culkin, who were adored until they cracked under the pressure of perfection. The entertainment industry demanded youth, energy, and obedience, but offered little emotional support in return. Child stars like Amanda grew up in studios instead of playgrounds, surrounded by adults who saw potential but rarely protection. Their innocence became a product sold in syndication, and when they dared to falter, the same audiences that loved them turned judgmental. Amanda's fall was not an isolated event. It was a symptom of a system that glorifies childhood success but punishes growing up. What makes Amanda's case so haunting is how predictable it was. The warning signs were all there: exhaustion, isolation, loss of identity, yet no one intervened until it was too late. The same industry that once called her the future of comedy watched her unravel for ratings. Her story forces Hollywood and society to confront uncomfortable questions about fame's cost. How many more young stars must burn out before empathy replaces entertainment? How many will be labeled crazy before being recognized as human? Amanda's journey is both cautionary and redemptive. It exposes the cracks in a system built on exploitation while reminding us that healing is still possible even after the world stops believing in you. Her downfall wasn't destiny. It was design, and her survival, despite it, is proof of her resilience. Today, Amanda Bynes lives quietly, away from the chaos that once defined her. She's no longer the teenage comedian or tabloid headline. She's a woman learning how to live without the world's expectations. Those close to her describe her as soft-spoken, artistic, and introspective. She still attends therapy, manages her health, and continues to design fashion under her own name. In recent years, Amanda has expressed a desire to use her experience to help others, particularly young performers navigating the pressures of fame and mental illness. She understands better than most the dangers of early stardom. Her compassion has deepened through pain, and her strength has become quiet but unwavering. Amanda's journey hasn't been perfect, but it's real. There have been relapses, moments of uncertainty, and times when she's needed support. But each time, she's returned not for fame, but for herself. She's living proof that recovery isn't about erasing the past. It's about learning to coexist with it. Those who once mocked her now speak of admiration. Even former colleagues who watched her rise and fall express awe at her perseverance. "She's one of the strongest people I've ever met," a friend once said. And it's true, strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers in persistence, in getting up every morning and trying again. Amanda Bynes is no longer Hollywood's lost girl. She's a woman who faced herself, fought back, and chose to keep living. In the story of her downfall lies something far more powerful, the story of her survival. Amanda Bynes' downfall forced Hollywood to confront its own reflection, one it didn't like seeing. For years, the industry had celebrated young stars like her, squeezing every ounce of talent and charm from them before quietly discarding them when they became too difficult or unstable. But Amanda's story wasn't about rebellion or fame gone wrong, it was about neglect. The same machine that built her career offered no support system when she needed help the most. Her unraveling became a mirror for the industry's failures. Agents, producers, and networks profited from her brilliance without protecting her well-being. Once her mental health struggles became public, many distanced themselves, as though compassion was a liability. Even after her diagnosis, few spoke out against the cruelty she endured. It was easier to label her as crazy than to confront the truth that Hollywood had failed her. In recent years, a shift has begun. Conversations about mental health, therapy, and accountability have become more mainstream. The entertainment world now acknowledges the importance of psychological safety for young actors, a change partly inspired by stories like Amanda's. Her pain became a catalyst for reform, even if she never sought to be an example. Still, the question remains, why must it take someone's breakdown for empathy to appear? Amanda's tragedy reminds us that fame doesn't make people invincible, it often isolates them more. Her experience should be studied not as gossip, but as a case study in how fame without support destroys even the brightest souls. In exposing Hollywood's indifference, Amanda helped humanize an entire generation of performers who grew up before the world's eyes but were never truly seen. For Amanda Bynes, redemption didn't come from a comeback role or viral interview, it came quietly, through perseverance. She didn't need to return to the big screen to reclaim her worth. Her redemption was internal in accepting herself, forgiving her past, and learning that healing is not a straight line but a lifelong process. Over time, Amanda began re-engaging with the world on her own terms. She finished school, pursued fashion design, and embraced therapy as a constant part of her life. The Amanda that exists today is no longer chasing applause. She's cultivating peace. Her days are structured around routines that bring her calm, walking, painting, journaling, and creating. Those who meet her now describe a woman transformed by humility and strength. She has learned to set boundaries, to say no, and to value her mental health above all else. While the media occasionally revisits her past, Amanda rarely responds. Her silence isn't avoidance, it's wisdom. She understands that true peace doesn't come from rewriting the past. It comes from refusing to relive it. Her journey stands as a testament to resilience. She may never return to acting, but that's not failure, that's freedom. Amanda Bynes found something far more important than fame. She found herself. And for a woman who spent most of her life being told who she should be, that is the greatest triumph of all. Amanda Bynes' story is one of both heartbreak and hope, a reminder of how fragile fame can be and how strong the human spirit truly is. She was once the girl who made the world laugh, then the woman the world laughed at. But today, she stands as a survivor, proof that healing is possible, even after public collapse. Her journey forces us to rethink how we view celebrities not as untouchable icons, but as people who bleed, break, and rebuild just like anyone else. Amanda's greatest victory isn't in her return to fame, but in her quiet decision to keep living, learning, and forgiving. If her story moved you, let it inspire compassion for every person hiding pain behind a smile. Like, share, and subscribe to Honor Stories that remind us healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just choosing to begin again.